Hey guys, in the next videos we are about to make this abstract Jaguar head, creating everything in the first video, then animate and loop many of the parts in different ways, and in the third part we will create some materials, play with the camera and set the final scene and renderings. Everything will be very simple, no need of sculpting skills or stuff like that. We will work in non-destructive way, modeling simple meshes first, and stacking modifiers on top to push the shape further. Starting with the biggest part, we will do a rough modeling of the head, then adding the other parts on top of it. It's just a cube with edge loop in the middle, so we can delete half of it and work only on one of the sides using the mirror modifier. We need the clipping on so everything stays together. Apply the scale if you scale the cube. Insert the front face and press B to snap it to the boundary and have it in the center. Pull it up and this will be the front side of the head. Add a few more edge loops in the center to break down the mouth into two sections. Adjusting it and let's start extruding to create the nose and the chin parts. So just extruding the faces and pulling the vertices around to form the base mesh. Get some images of the animal you are making. It's good to have references. I'm always checking images like different positions and angles, stuff like that. We are doing abstracting and it can be anything, but it's nice if we can capture some of the animal features. We can bevel vertices with Ctrl B and I'll use this shortcut here to create the ear. Then insert this face and push it in. Continue with the tweaks, check the references until we have some base mesh like this. And we can stack the modifiers, starting with a subdivision. Keep the levels to 1 for viewport and rendering. Wireframe to get this volume of the edges, creating this frame. Set the thickness, check the scale, and let's add another subdivision modifier at the end. So that's what we have for now. Very simple and fast thing that we can update at any time. From here we can just duplicate it to create the small spheres. It's all about modifiers, so remove some, then adding edge split modifier. We can control it from here. Let's add one more modifier, smooth, so we can see what this angle option is doing. We can use it to set how much of the edges will be split depending on their angle. In this case we want all of them, so just set it to 0. Add some volume with the solidify modifier and let's round everything with another subdivision. Play with the solidify offset to match with the wireframe. Save the file from time to time and let's create a nose part or that big thing on the top of the head. I'll add a cube again and tweak it in edit mode to create something like a diamond shape. We can bridge faces in different ways. One of the easiest is by using loop tools. This is add-on that we can enable from preferences. This thing right here. Add a few more details by insert and extruding faces. And let's add the bevel on top of the mesh. If you're using Blender 4 like me, we can still shade auto smooth like that, which will enable the auto smooth option. The shading may look weird now, even if we created all quotes based mesh, but we can solve this by adding weighted normal modifier after the bevel. Array modifier to get a few more copies. We are using y-axis, but this is not important here because we will array it along the curve, so change it to fit curve type. For this we need a path. Rotate it 90 degrees on the z-axis, but don't apply the rotation on the path. Add it there and let's add the curve modifier to connect it. Pair the curve to the object, and with the curve selected, set the viewport display in front, so it's easier to select and edit. Put the object where we want it, and let's start extruding the curve in edit mode. Going around the head, we can use Alt S to control the radius of the point. Precise and de-array spacing if needed. We can still go to edit mode and update the design with a few more shapes. I will just duplicate and separate the top face, extrude it and adjust the factor. To correct the offset, the easiest way is to check at the end. If it's matching, then everything is okay. The factor depends on the shape size in relation to the origin point, so first get the shape right and adjust the factor after that. Duplicate in these faces, separate the selection, and fill the front and the back face with F. I'll rotate the whole thing to look more aggressive and interesting, if you will. Let's add a few elements to the mouth as well. I will use a simple curve to highlight the edge. From the object data properties, we can set the bevel to profile, making it squarish-like. Add some depth, resolution up, and fill the gaps. Put it there and use the side views to extrude along the edge of the mouth. We need a mirror modifier for the other side. Enable clipping, this will weld the thing at the center. We already have it with all the settings, so just duplicate it, delete some of the vertices and tweak it in edit mode, creating a few more elements like that. Repeat that a few more times. I'm not showing the whole process because the video will be too long, but you get the point. This is the final thing. To fill it inside, we are using simple plane with a mirror modifier. Open one more window to check it from different angles and make the modeling easier. I'm switching to the X-ray mode with Alt Z so I can select the vertices behind. Extrude it along the mouth and add subdivisions with a few more levels. Shade smooth. We can also add solidify modifier, and if we place it before the subdivision, we can get this bending around the edges. We will have a two different type of teeth, and for the long I'll use a curve again, just because it's very easy to create, and adjust in edit mode after that. I will stay with bevel for this, and because we have the origin point there, it's very easy to rotate. Take some time again to adjust, then mirror it with the head as a mirror object. Duplicate it a few more times and tweak it in edit mode. Maybe increase the resolution so it's not so edgy. We can do it from here. For the other set of teeth, we'll use a cube and we'll animate it later in different ways. We have to rotate it so the Z-axis stays on top, just like that. Scale it down and place it where it needs to be with a subdivision modifier. A few edge loops to limit the subdivision effect. Duplicate it several times and let's add the mirror modifier. Do the same with the front teeth. Here it's important to keep the local coordinates, so don't apply the rotation of the objects, just leave it the way it is. Do something like that, and let's move on to a tongue. We can just duplicate face from this object and separate it. We have all the modifiers and stuff there, so why not? Just a few extrudes to create this simple bended mesh that looks like tongue. Edge crease the middle edge and pull it down to resemble the tongue even more. Taking again a part of the mesh so we can build a few elements around the eyes. Just add the head as mirror object. We can also set back the origin point to geometry so it's easier to rotate, edit and all this stuff. Remove the edge creases if any, and like on the other parts you just extrude the edges in edit mode. Around the ears, down the eyes to model these elements. You can go wild or just follow what we are doing here. Do something like this, and we can place the cursor there with shift and right click. This is useful if you want to add the object on specific places, for example. For the eyes we can extrude, then scale down these faces to 0, excluding the Y axis by holding shift. Subdivision and edit the size along the local axis. I'll duplicate the shape, adding a few more elements here. Let's do something for the chin. Grab a plane and just place it there. Maybe rotate it a little bit. Adding a few modifiers like solidify for some thickness. Also subdivision with a few levels. We can add a few edge loops so it's not so rounded. Maybe edge crease some of the edges. Let's add in the array so we can easily create a few copies using the empty. Let's connect the empty with the array modifier like that. And something is wrong. This is because we forget to apply the rotation. Now looks better, but we have to move the empty to make this work. And scale it down a little bit. We can add another subdivision. And let's increase the count of the arrays with a few more copies. Add in mirror as the last modifier. Mirror object ahead. Play a little bit to get it right. A few more elements to add around the chin. Later we can loop this part in different ways. It's just a plane to model the simple shape first, then stack in the modifiers. I really like to work in non-destructive way, and the modifiers are perfect for these purposes. Solidify a modifier for the thickness. Duplicate it a few more times and tweak everything in edit mode. It doesn't have to be perfect because we can always come back later and adjust it if needed. I will mirror everything and leave the shapes like that for now. Maybe just shade smooth and add a few more modifiers, like the bevel for this one. And final subdivision. A wireframe modifier on this one. We can easily copy all modifiers with Ctrl L. It would be great if we can copy only specific modifiers. but maybe it's only me, just don't know how to do it yet. We are almost done with the modeling. Here I want to create one more part popping out of the mouth that we'll animate later. For this I'll add a cylinder. If we rotate it in edit mode or scale or move, we don't have to apply the transforms after that. We want to array it along a curve on the x-axis, so let's prepare it first with a bevel. Shade auto smooth and add the array modifier. We need a path and maybe scale down the whole thing. Add a curve modifier and let's connect it with the array. And you know here, if we enable in front display and we pair the curve to the object, it will be easier to control it. We can tweak now the curve points to set the shape as we want it. Alt S was to scale the radius. Touch further the modifiers wherever it needed. Mirror it, and we're done with this part as well. The last thing we can do is to play further with some of the muzzle parts. Unfortunately, some of the modifiers don't work with the curves, so we have to destruct them or turn them into meshes. I still want to keep the curves in case I want to adjust the shape later, so we can just duplicate them and move the copies into their own collection. Just unhide it now, and this will be something like a backup folder. The curves now are too dense, so we can jump to the wireframe view and see what we have. We can reduce the edges. We have two resolution options here. Leave them like that and let's turn them into meshes. So now we just have to add the modifiers that we want, like the wireframe modifier. And maybe subdivision only on this part to make them a little bit different, and we have everything. That was in the modeling part. Hope you like what we're doing here, and if so, I'll see you in the next looping part.